Я подтверждение ситуации передаю настройку. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, AK fans and aficionados, it is here. It is time. Season 2, Episode 12, the finale of the Talking Lead AK Corner, presented by Century Arms. It has arrived. Dun, dun, dun. This is a topic, this episode, something I've been wanting to do for a while, and just kind of been holding off until we found the right person to join us, the right expert. And thanks to Brian and Jay, we were able to find that gentleman. So before we introduce him, I want to go ahead and introduce my co-host, who's been with me through every episode except one. Got our good buddy, Brian Keeney with Occam Defense Solutions. Brian, welcome in.
Hey, guys. Great to be here again.
Yes, sir. And Brian is a bit in a rush, but we're not going to rush this show because we started earlier. His significant other has a birthday today, so happy birthday to Mrs. Occam Defense.
Well, I'm sure she'll appreciate that. Any leadheads who are also 1775 customers sending her birthday well wishes, I'm sure would make her day at admin@occamdefense.com. It's going to be a little delayed, but she likes belated gifts, so rock on to those of you who know her already as the administrator. She does all our customer service and sales management and all that, and keeps us from being disgusting dudes in the shop.
Keeps you on point and in check, and especially when you're on my show.
Big time.
Yeah, so we thank her for that.
She's never listened to an episode, and I want to keep it that way, because if she knew what my potty mouth was on here, she would not be happy. Yeah. Well,
you do very well. And last episode, if you guys hadn't had an opportunity, go back to our regular Talking Lead episode, 362, I believe it was. We had Brian and we had the League of Pirates on, and we just kind of had a venting session with what all's going on with our country and the world here lately. And you guys seem to have liked it. I've been getting nothing but great feedback, and we'll probably do another similar show. There was a lot of stuff that we wanted to get into, but we didn't, and we probably got enough for 4 or 5 more episodes of that content. So we'll do that again, Brian.
Awesome. I had a lot of fun, and appreciate all the positive feelings on it.
Also joining us, and also sharing a birthday this month with Mrs. Occam Defense, we've got our good buddy, AK Guru, we call him, none other than my good friend, Drew. Drew, welcome in.
What's up, Leadheads? Good to be back. As always, on the AK Corner, my favorite of the Talking Lead podcasts, for sure. But good to be on, and hope this looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting and informative episode.
It is, just like our last AK Corner, which was the brainchild of Drew, where we talked about the AK and its bad guy stigmatism, where we did some deep diving into some history of the AK. We went and did some pop culture, movies, music, TV, and I'm still getting feedback from you guys on that too, on your favorite movies that featured the AK. Did any more come to mind after that show that you wished you had talked about or had mentioned?
We probably should have talked a little more about Missing in Action.
Yeah, the Chuck Norris.
Yeah, but those movies suck in comparison to the Rambos. We discussed it after the show, Marty. But yeah, I think we probably could have spent a little more time on the Missing in Action series of films. But
we actually,
I think we covered all the main ones.
We actually watched one after we recorded that, and we were like, this isn't how I remembered it. It's not as good as I actually remembered it being.
Yeah. But, still a part of pop culture for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So that brings us to our special guest this episode, our special guest expert, where we're going to be talking about the markings on an AK-47, the magazines, how to decipher those markings, what they mean, where to find them, where they're located. And like I was saying earlier, Jay and Brian brought this gentleman to my attention in his company, And Brian, I'll let you do the intro.
Yeah, so I met this gentleman maybe 5 or 6 years ago in Tennessee, and we immediately hit it off. And he is a former public servant, firefighter, EMS, warrior, overseas and here for us, and is currently out of all that and doing a bunch of cool entrepreneurial endeavors. And we're a customer of his for all of our laser engraving. He has a fantastic line of warrior art and has a real, he's a legit artist, although I don't think he would describe him that way, but his art is beautiful, and he manages to put it into metal, which is quite a feat. And he also has a real love of the iconography, the symbols and the markings that go with Cyrillic stuff. And I don't know which one of us hates communism more, me or James, but that's a good contest to try and win. And so neither one of us are fans of anything having to do with communism other than some of the art and the AK that came out of it. And so he loves history as well. He's got we should get him in for one of the rap sessions on politics, because he has some really interesting insights there as well.
Okay. We'll do that.
And so where I see his awesomeness showing through the most is when these arts and politics and guns all come together into one place. And so his company, his latest endeavor here, Factory 47, is dedicated to all of that, all the markings and the iconography and art of the AK and comm block stuff in general. So James Bialcheck is our guest today.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me.
James, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for agreeing to do the show, especially with us never meeting before. So, that's a big leap of faith on your end. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't know who's been telling you the word expert, though. I think it's Brian. I don't know what's with that. Making me nervous.
Well, I'm just looking at your website, and the Factory 47. It's FAKORY, Factory 47, and for the topic, it seems like you're nailing it with the emblems and logos and things that you have on your hats and your shirts and your mugs. So
yeah, I think that I definitely have read too many books and geeked out on it. It's a very cool thing. I think that's one of the draws of the AK platform, though. It's obviously a very quality weapons platform, and it's well known for its durability and things like that. But when you start looking at it from like the 2020 perspective, there's a lot of history there, a lot of story to it. And when you pick up, an AK and there's a proof mark or an inspection stamp somewhere, it's who touched that? Where was it made? What's its story? How did it end up right here, right now, today? And so there's a really rich culture that follows that. And I think that's what kind of draws me in any ways. And like Brian was touching on with, I am a fan of history and I do like art. And when you kind of bring those things together on a magnificent platform like the AK, there's just so much, substance to that. And I think that's, one of those things that probably draws a lot of people. And that's kind of where Factory 47 came from, was taking that passion and turning it into apparel and letting people go, sport the different factories or things that they like and enjoy. So I'm definitely a student of it, but I've definitely, I would say I've learned a lot over the last couple of years as I've pursued it.
Yeah. So talk about how you got into, the AK. What really drew you to the AK, and what actually stands out as, your favorite aspect of it?
Like any American guy, I think, or gal, growing up, especially I'm in central Montana, I grew up out here, so there's always the guns are around. The thing.
So what were you doing in Tennessee? I want to interrupt you there, but Brian said he met you in Tennessee.
Yeah, training. Yeah, I entered the training world. Actually, that might have been one of my first classes or class weeks, maybe.
Let me guess, Camden.
It was Camden.
There you go.
And so
Jaeger.
I had entered the training world at that time, and prior to that, I was always into obviously guns and liberty, and I always viewed them as an instrument of liberty first and foremost. But like the next guy watching a Steven Seagal movie or something, like, oh, I'm gonna go get another cool gun or whatever. And I got into modifying them and painting them before that was the cool thing to do. And mostly for practical though, I was going for like camos and trying to make things a little more practical. Didn't have any clue what I was doing, and eventually, years later, I decided to start taking some classes. But to back up, and that's how I met Brian. But to back up to what we had mentioned, or what you'd asked about the why I kind of was drawn to the AK.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always been an AR first kind of guy. That was the go-to, the home plate, and for two really, really big reasons for me. One was the ability to carry the ammo. It was really hard, 10, 15, 20 years ago to put a bunch of really bent mags on your kit. And, 10, 15 years ago, before I was into training, I had the idea and perception that I needed, 8 mags stacked on my chest and as many as I could put on a belt as I could and maybe a backpack full. And AK mags were hard to do. It wasn't until I started training I realized that's not feasible. And pouches today are very different. You don't have to unvelcro and unbutton everything to get a mag out. A lot of these like taco style pouches, you can do an AR or AK mag in them very simply, and you can run and gun right out of that. So that problem is now eliminated, and really wasn't a problem, after I started training and really realized how to use this stuff. The second thing was the ability to mount certain things to your rifle. Back in the day, it was put everything on it that you think is cool and looks cool, and that's that. But really, like a flashlight is a major piece of equipment to want to put on a rifle, and you don't want that in a place that's going to cause problems or limit you in any way. So that's been kind of a tough thing with the AK platform, and of course, Brian solves that problem. There's modern technologies that have advanced the platform, so it's not as big of a thing. But prior to that, I was always an AR first guy, so the AK always drew me. I loved it. I love the durability of it, the reliability of it. I think they're unique, but I didn't give them a lot of looks until about 5 years ago for those reasons. Once I did, the history drew me in. That would be the single thing that really damn, these things are used, and they've been used in every conflict, every war since 1949. There's a reason, there's a reason, and they work. And then I, of course, took them into some of these classes, and I can tell you it's quite a treat.
And that's why I call you an expert. So you've got some very deep history and experience with the AK. So compared to me, you're an expert. Now, Andrew can go probably toe-to-toe with you on some things. I consider Andrew an expert as well. And of course, we all know Brian is. Brian knows his stuff left and right, backwards and forwards. So that's why I wanted to have you on for this episode, the markings. And I think it's going to be fun. And I think, we probably could get several episodes out of this. So we're just going to kind of go high level on this episode. Even though this is the season 2 finale, it gives us more to talk about and look forward to in season 3. And big thanks to Century Arms for making season 2 possible. All the support that they've given the show through the swag, through the expertise that they've provided for the show. And speaking of this show, talking about swag and giveaways, I think our listeners are going to be very pleased with what Adam has come up with, Andrew, for a giveaway for this episode.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to be giving away one of our 100% U.S.-made Visca rifles.
There you go. The Visca from Century Arms, U.S.-made AK-47 is going to be going to one of you lucky leadheads. And, of course, you know how we do that. We go through and we look who has participated and been supporting the show. And we made a post prior to this, and we got a lot of participation and feedback and comments. So we'll be going through that pool on Instagram and Facebook to pick one of our winners. And then also we've got Factory 47. James has generously put up 3 swag packages that he's going to put together, and we're going to pick 3 you lead heads to win that as well. So.
My single favorite product of Factory 47 is a tumbler that James Duracoats to look exactly like a Spam can with acrylic
Nice.
markings and everything. And even if you guys don't win one, they are worth the price of admission. And a very cool product.
Yeah. I mean,
so hopefully James can be convinced to tuck one of those into the swag bags.
I've already jumped down the rabbit hole on his website, and there's several things that I've been eyeing on there too: the caps, the shirts, the hoodies, the mugs. And there may be some special things coming from James. He and I are talking, and there may be some new things that he's going to be adding to his website. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it'll work out. We're always adding new stuff. You got to come back to that site often.
Absolutely. And then also our presenting sponsors for season 2 definitely could not have done this without the help of Occam Defense Solutions. Brian Keeney and the crew there have been with us, like I said, just about every single episode. Just missed the one, but they were still with us in spirit, putting up swag and giveaways and expertise, dropping knowledge bombs left and right. And, of course, Brian also helps us out on the regular show, the Talking Lead podcast. So, Brian, thank you guys for that, and looking forward to continuing this with you as well.
Well, thanks. We really do appreciate the support of the Leadheads. A lot of our customers are Leadheads, and so thank you to all you guys, and thank you to Marty for helping us grow here. I think we announced the 1775 as a pre-order kind of concept on your Thanksgiving show a little over 2 years ago, and so it's been a kind of a straight line ramp up from there, and couldn't have done it without you guys either. So thanks to everybody.
And then, of course, Red Army Standard, U.S. Palm, Canic USA, all contributing there as supporting sponsors. And then jumping on toward the tail end of Season 2, we were fortunate enough to get IWI US, Jeremy Gresham there, and he joined us for a couple of episodes as well. And we're going to continue that relationship with them. The outpouring that we had from you guys on wanting to do a show on the Uzi. So we're in talks about doing that. It'll probably be like a little mini series on the Uzi. We'll probably do 2 or 3 episodes on that too. So,
founded in 2012, IWI US is the USA-based subsidiary of Israel Weapon Industries Limited of Ramat Hasharon, Israel. The IWI US line of products includes the Tavor X95, the Uzi Pro pistol and SMG, the Galil Ace line of firearms, and the belt-fed Negev line of light machine guns. IWI's mission is to bring the highest quality firearms with real world-proven reliability to the U.S. commercial and law enforcement market. IWI US are proud sponsors of the Talking Lead AK Corner and the Leadhead Brigade. Check us out at www.iwi.us and on social media under IWI US.
some stuff in the works there with them as well. So make sure you go and show love to all the companies and people that have made this show possible, this season 2 for the AK Corner. Even our guests, as you're listening to them, go to their websites, go to their social medias, and just show appreciation. Let them know how much you appreciate them being on. And I know there's always questions. You know, we don't answer everything. We don't cover everything in the shows, but we try to get as much as we can. But they are always willing to, answer questions that are lingering for you guys. So that said, let's get into this. Let's get into how to identify AKs from those unique markings that you see on there. You know, what the hell do those mean? And, where can I find them? So I think the best place to start, let's go with the operational markings, like the sights, the selectors, the ones that are functional markings. Let's go over those first real quick, and then we'll get into those other obscure markings there.
All right, yeah. On And sites are actually kind of my weak spot. On sites, for example, I know that the weakest spot I guess I'd have is the site leaf is graduated out to 8 or 1,000, and that varies by country, and that is the first kind of thing you're going to obviously see is if it's one or the other. That gives you an indication, that groups you down into one of two groups of countries. And what those countries are is my rusty spot, and no like Hungarian and I believe Romanian are going to be out to 1,000. So, and there's probably some others in there. Again, I'm kind of weak on that. The next thing to look at on that site is down on the
and
left
those
side.
numbers are meters. It's 800 and
Meters,
1,000
yes.
meters. So as you're looking at those site apertures, it's not yards, it's meters.
Yeah, that's a good point. People would think 1,000-yard AK, sweet. I'll buy this one.
And I think Brian probably knows a little bit more about the sites than either one of us. Brian, you want to comment?
Well, yeah,
on
I think you guys are doing a good job. There are certain ones that go, I think, only to 3 that might be on some of the pistols, like maybe the Draco or some of those shorter guys there. They'll only be graduated a little bit in recognition that there's just no way you're getting out that far. Occasionally on some of them, there's a Cyrillic, like it looks like a B if I remember right, or there's some symbol and it just means you battle 0 or 0 position.
It's a P on some of them.
Yeah, so the P I believe is that's Polish, right? I believe.
Yeah.
Actually, I have that actually up.
Hold on, I can tell you.
That's fine.
And the Cyrillic will be, of course, your Russian.
And when you say Cyrillic, what does that mean?
It'll look like an N, only kind of a goofy. It might have a little curly Q on the bottom of left of it.
Right.
It'll look like almost like a cursive N, maybe.
And this is one of the reasons why I kind of put this show off too. Is like, how do I best do something it's kind of a visual? So, we kind of gotta visually paint people a picture of these symbols too.
Marty, on Cyrillic, like the actual, like what is Cyrillic? That's basically Russian characters. Like we have an English alphabet. Cyrillic would be like the characters in the Russian alphabet.
Good point.
Slavic alphabet is better. I guess
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah, so the Cyrillic letter would mean the same thing in the English letter if you matched the two. And you'll see that again when we do like the selector markings and some of that stuff. So the languages mean the same thing. They're just going to be different because of those countries.
Yeah.
Just while we're geeking out on alphabets, one thing that I've come to realize in the last couple of years is that just like we have a bunch of handwritten fonts and different styles, like even cursive, there's more than one font in cursive handwriting, like
Sure.
the Coca-Cola font, copper plate is one word for that. And in Cyrillic, the same thing is true. And so I've had the requirement to translate some old Russian documents that were handwritten, and that won't line up at all with the keyboard fonts in a way that is like really hard. It's really hard to tease out. Like a Cyrillic, in handwritten Cyrillic T looks like a cursive M in handwritten English. And so there's not just one font that you have to know about. Like you can go to Google Translate and type in Cyrillic characters and get it on the other side. It'll translate it reasonably well. But it's a really fun treasure hunt to try and figure some of that stuff out.
So some countries in their marks, like Albania, so that P would be a D. It would look like a D. Bulgaria, it looks like a lowercase n without a little top on it. China has a D. Germany has a capital N. Hungary has a big A, capital A. North Korea's is, I don't know how you would describe it, almost a rectangle that's not connected at the top, kind of sort of.
That's the only one that'll look like an Asian
An Asian
font.
letter font. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, Poland has Poland's an S, I guess, and then Romania is a P.
Yeah.
Russia has that N that you were talking about, and then Yugoslavia has a big O, a big zero.
The thing to point out on this too is when you see the site and you see, say, a P and you're thinking Romania, that means the site is Romanian.
Right.
So a lot of times these rifles might be, kind of hodgepodge together depending on the owner.
Frankenstein together, yeah.
Yeah, pawn shops or gun stores, that's just you're getting an indicator of what you might have, but it's definitely not the end all be all because it doesn't take much to pop a sight leaf out and pop a new one in. So
exactly.
That's one of the reasons why I've not spent a whole lot of energy committing to sight leafs. But anyways, yeah, it's good information. So
yeah.
And if you find a really nice rifle and then the sight leaf doesn't match, it's not obviously a showstopper at that point. You might, now you just know you need to go find a specific sight leaf. So it's good information.
Sure.
But
exactly, and that's kind of what we're wanting to feed our listeners here as they're going and they get this AK or they're thinking about buying this AK. Just quick ways that they can start identifying, and that's a good place to start right there.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you see a really nice, Chinese AK, and they got a pretty steep price tag on it on the higher end, and the sight leaf doesn't match. Now you've got some negotiating material, and you could probably find a Chinese sight leaf on the internet to replace it. So it's a great place to verify what you're getting and to be able to negotiate appropriately.
And just as an example, the Vishka is an American-made one, and on theirs they use the S on their sight leaf, and it goes up to 8.
They should have come up with a whole new one.
Do what?
We should have just made up our own letter for that.
Our own letter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Andrew, why didn't they do that?
Yeah, A is Hungarian, so we can't do an A.
They should have just done a C for Century.
There you go.
Or a V for Vishka. Because really it doesn't matter what it is, I guess. It's where it's located, and it's at the very bottom or the very front, I guess, depending on which way you start on the sight leaf. But it's the very first mark as you're moving the sight drum. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we spent way too much time on this the sight leaf. So let's move to the selector now and some of the different markings that you'll see on the selectors.
All right, selectors are mostly going to be marked by semi and full because most of these were built intentionally for military use. So, even the ones that were built for export, they just kind of mass produced the stuff and then made it as needed for export. But what you do find on a lot of these, though, is they'll have different markings for whether it was intended for export or intended for military. And you find this a lot with like the Chinese ones. Mm-hmm. So if they have Chinese caricatures, it was intended for military use. And if it has an L and a D, it was intended for export to the United States. So kind of interesting because if you do come across a Chinese AK with Chinese caricatures, that was not meant for you ever. So that's a pretty cool piece to get your hand on.
Nice.
But anyway, so that's China. I guess we just covered that. If you see Chinese writing, yeah,
and
China.
It's kind of it stands as evident that it's Chinese writing, I guess.
Yeah,
their characters. Yeah. I wouldn't even know where to start to describe these characters, but.
There is the Korean obviously has Asian markings also for the selector, and you'll have to go to the trunnion from there to see if it's Korean. If it is, call me. Just buy it. Call me. But anyways, other than that, that's your only Asian markings. But most likely on a Chinese, you would see an L and a D.
Yeah.
So I guess let's just start at Russia again, huh?
Yeah.
Russia would be an AB, and then a Cyrillic, what looks like an O and an A, but it's not.
Yeah. The upper is an AB, and then the lower selection is the O. Looks like an A.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Bulgaria will also be a Cyrillic. It'll be the AB again for the full auto, and then an EA for the semi. German will be a D or an E, but they also have what looks like a figure 8 on its side, and then a 1.
Would that be the infinity symbol?
Infinity, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Infinity. Was that full auto? I would assume is like.
Yes.
Yeah. Infinity.
And that's the same for Hungary as well. That Hungary will have the Infinity and the 1.
And the 1. Okay.
Poland is a C and a P. Romania, FA and FF. And then Yugoslavia, an R and a J.
How easily is it for somebody to fake these? Like if somebody wanted to try to make a knockoff copy.
Super easy.
Yeah. So that's another thing you got to look at too.
And I do have a tip there, and those of our customers and others, lots of people build on Childers receivers, and they build from 2 different kinds of receiver blank. One of them is imported from Poland, and they weld over the C and the P and then grind it flush really expertly. I don't know how they get it as good as they do. But on the inside of the receiver, because it's a stamping, you'll see the witness mark very often of the C and the P, sort of, just the shadow of it on the inside of the receiver, especially if the metal is somewhat polished. But that is a way to see if somebody's been monkeying and covering up other weldings, or other stampings.
Yeah.
But I don't know how useful it is. It's just really fun when you can spot something like that.
Well, that's a good point you bring up there too. Are the majority of these stamped in there, or are some of them lasered in, etched in, or are they all stamped?
They should mostly be stamped. Or like hand engraved. You see a lot of that, especially in earlier production from different countries. In the American builds, obviously laser engraved, or another thing they're doing is taking like a stencil, and then they'll either salt with water etch or electro etch it out, and it looks a little more authentic that way. When it comes to the receivers, though, I don't know that it really devalues it any, because you're buying pretty much a military gun that was cut up, and then you're rebuilding it. So the American parts are going to be the receiver and your barrel. Everything else is authentic, and so the value is going to hold the same, because where are you going to get the military gun, right? So,
Right.
You have to have 9 parts or whatever as American anyway. So the receiver is not going to devalue you as long as it's, a quality receiver you're building on and it's built right.
That's a good point.
And James is, of course, referring to 99.99% of all the AKs in the country. There are some, correct me if I'm wrong, James, but there are some like Vietnam era bring back battlefield pickup, bring back guns where dudes just shoved them in their rucksacks and brought them home full auto and all.
Yeah.
Well, those are illegal though.
There is that, and it had
but they're here.
Those are rare cases, and those fall into 2 categories too, because there's the people that when the ban came, they did the right stuff, and those ones are worth an astronomical amount of money now. And then there's the ones where they just hush, buried it, whatever. And some of these are starting to come up. I had stumbled on one not too long ago, about a year ago, that the gentleman had passed away, and family's clearing out the stuff, and they're like, "Oh, looky, what is all this?" Next thing you know, there's a sale going on. Well, of course, that stuff has to be cut. So now you've got this firearm, that's, minted gold, and it's got to be cut up. So now it's back to the rebuild process, just like these other ones. So it doesn't really change anything from our perspective. Like Brian was saying, most of the rifles that you'll find, floating around America, the receiver and the barrel are American, and all the rest of it's, authentic. So when it comes to the markings on the receiver, if it has a lot of these markings, it's been done later, to match the parts kit.
So are there any other operational markings other than those 2 that you guys are aware of?
You could, when it comes to like the kits, your serial number that's going to be on the trunnion will be matched. So you'll find it on, I think a gentleman asked this in either the Instagram or the Facebook post you put out, but that's where else you could find stuff to kind of match things on the back of the Dutch cover.
So once we do the, what we've talked about, the selector and the selector switch. So now let's talk about matching, so we see this, now we go and we start verifying what we've really got here, I guess.
Yeah.
serial number a good place to start? Is that where we're going?
Well, before James goes too full hog, I'm going to niggle with you slightly and say that these serial numbers actually are operational markings. There was a real problem with, like, every bolt is custom fit in an AK to every AK. And so if you find a gun that had a prior service life in the Baltic or wherever, having the serial number match on the bolt to the bolt carrier to the trunnion is actually kind of a big deal. There's legend that when commies would clean their guns, they would throw all of the bolts and all the bolt carriers and everything that need to be cleaned in one big pile, and that not all the serial numbers made it back into the right places. And the matching between the trunnion and the bolt is fairly important. And so having matching serial numbers there can be a big deal. It is possible to retrofit them, when they were remanufactured in the US so that everything's groovy, but all things being equal, serial numbers are operational numbers as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, good point.
All right, thank you, Brian. Thanks for all that.
Boring. Sorry, man.
I just totally lost my train of thought. Thank you.
Damn it, Brian. You threw off our expert.
When I find a rifle that I'm curious about and I pick it up, the very first thing I actually look for, typically for me, is I go right to the trunnion where the barrel pin goes through, and I look for the proof mark. A lot of them, of course, don't have it, but that's a starting point for me. And right next to that will be the serial number. So, we'll talk about the serial numbers first, and then get into the proof marks if you want. But
okay, yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
From the serial number, like Brian was saying, it is important. So other places to find it would be the back of the dust cover on the flat face. Sometimes it's right above the, little cutout. Sometimes it's right below it. And then the bolt carrier will have it, and the bolt itself. And on the bolt, it's right on the step down from the big part to the, the long skinny part. It's usually right there. Kind of
talk about left side, right side of the rifle also.
Okay. So so the trunnion.
We got to paint a picture because we're all audio here. They can't see us.
All right. So trunnion on the left side of the rifle. So if you're the non-port side, I'm calling that left. So that's
if you're behind the rifle, looking down the sights, that's the left side. Yep.
Your left side. Yep.
Perfect.
And right there where the barrel pin would go through, or above the couple rivets on the face of the trunnion, would be where your proof mark, usually a date, and the serial number are. Sometimes it's a 4-digit date. Sometimes it's 2-digit. Sometimes it's kind of almost looks like it's built into the serial number. And it just depends on the country of origin and what they're doing there. That's where you want to look at your serial number, and then from there go to your other components and make sure they all match. If they don't, it's not the end of the world. Like Brent was saying, it can be retrofitted, or, it was probably built later. Like a lot of parts kits that are floating around now for sale, a lot of the good stuff's picked through. So when stuff pops up or it's for sale, a lot of times it's not matching, but it's still parts. But of course the matching is going to be a lot more desirable.
Right. So, now, when you're going to look for matching serial numbers, what all parts have the serial number on them, or should have?
All right, let's hopefully I don't forget anything here. So the dust cover, the bolt carrier, and your trunnion. What am I forgetting? Brian, am I forgetting anything?
Bulgaria will put the serial number on the outside of the selector, at least in the ones I've seen. They'll put it on the safety. A lot of countries will put the serial number, and you wouldn't see it unless you were looking for it, but on the part of the safety that's cast, the part that's inside the gun, not the stamping that's outside, you'll either see the serial number kind of in the saddle that's sitting there, or on the side where the little tang is that sticks out that interferes with the trigger to prevent firing. And then I have seen it once or twice on a recoil spring. And after that, stocks occasionally.
Oh, yeah, in the wood sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, and I've got a Yugo RPK with the serial number stamped into the stock.
So I take it that's not as common, though?
It's common with the Chinese stuff.
Okay.
And then, Andrew, when you guys were bringing in Yugos or in your prior history, were standard Yugo, the M70 or M72 or whatever they are, would you guys see a lot of that, or is that not as common?
No, not on the newer production stuff from the Yugo stuff. So those guns came in, as sporter models, and they were 922R compliant.
Oh, got it.
By us.
Right.
So we brought those in the same way we bring the Wazers in. So they're neutered basically when they come in the country, and then we machine out the mag well, put the U.S. made furniture, put a rack 1 trigger in them, that kind of thing. We did the same stuff with the Yugos.
Yep, got it.
Yeah. So your receivers were Yugoslavian, just like the Romanians are Romanian receivers.
Yep.
And Romanian and barrels are just they're neutered guns, and then they're 922 here in the U.S.
Yep.
Very cool. So the serial number, I mean, there's several parts there that you can verify and make sure that they match up. And then, like you said, of course, if they don't match up, it's not the end of the world.
And also, those are places you can find the serial numbers. Those are not necessarily always going to have a serial number on them. Some dust covers will, some dust covers won't. Typically, your bolt carriers, always your trunnion, obviously, is going to be serialized. So don't freak out if you're like, oh, this must be a replacement dust cover because it doesn't have the serial number on it. It may not have ever had a serial number on it. So, just be mindful. Obviously, the biggest thing about the serial number is if there are serial numbers in multiple places and they're not the same. That's more of an issue than this dust cover doesn't have a serial number.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Very good point.
A lot of variance to the stuff. It's not all cut and dry. And because so many countries put their hands on it, there's, they all put their own little touch and taste into things. And then even within those countries, there are different factories that were making them. So, no rhyme or reason sometimes.
Yeah. But as far as
what
this
makes the case interesting, though, is that
that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, but as far as the serial number pattern, that it's put in, it'll be the same on all those parts. So if you've got a serial number and it doesn't match that pattern, then probably throw up red flags there too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just check.
Though,
check
we should probably draw a distinction here between a fighting gun or a target gun and a collector's item, right? If we're looking at buying a fighting gun, the only 3 serial numbers that I care about are the trunnion, the bolt, and the bolt carrier. Nothing else matters. It's really just about maintaining the integrity of the Trinity there, and past that, I couldn't care less. However, James does some really serious collecting, and that's where this stuff, beyond those, the Holy Trinity there, beyond those, we're really just talking about collector's stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the neat thing about the AK with collecting, though, is it's still a fighting gun. Got to give it that.
Very good point, James. Yeah.
I don't think you could say that about any other firearm that I can think of.
Well, and if you were to buy a perfect Porsche 911 or whatever, I'm not a car guy, or that hot one that Grace Kelly and that accident, I forget who died in that. Never mind. Fancy car, right? Nobody would race, a Porsche from the 50s or 60s on a track today. They'd have it redone, right? And that's not the case with an AK. If you give me a 60s vintage collector's item AK and tell me I got to go fight with it, I got a smile on my face. So you're totally right.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
real.
Yep.
All right, so outside the serial number, where are we venturing to next? The markings?
Yeah, I would go to the proof mark. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the nuts and bolts of this. That's not on every gun, though. Not all AKs have a proof mark. But when they do, for some reason, it just makes your heart, I don't know. It's just, there's a level of excitement when you see that mark. I got 3 sitting here in my hands right now. It's just like, look at, I'm smiling.
So what are you looking at right now?
So
describe what you're looking at.
Well, the one in my right hand here is it was a battlefield pickup kit from the Balkans. So it's a Romanian. It's a very weathered and kind of beaten trunnion, but like I say, it's a battlefield pickup, which is cool because it's like, what's its story? But the proof mark, it's Romanian, so it's a triangle with an upward facing arrow Like starts at the bottom, goes up towards the point of the triangle. I do have I think it's actually over behind me, a Romanian that was a build kit that I got and we put together. Actually, it's my mom put it together. And
Your
it doesn't
mom
have,
put it together?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Check it out. No, my family builds AKs, yo. No, but it's just an empty triangle. So there are a couple
The
of
family
variants
that builds AKs together stays together.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so the triangle with the arrow pointing up is...
So yeah, the triangle with the arrow pointing up is the most common. They also had an empty triangle, and like I say, I have one of those over there. So there's a couple different variants on the Romanians, but if you have to look close because this other one I have here is a triangle with an arrow inside of it pointing up also, but the arrow has the little feathers on the bottom. It's centered in the triangle. It doesn't connect to the bottom. That's the Ishmash Russian one. So if you see a triangle with an arrow, you might think you have a Russian. If you don't look close enough, it might be Romanian. So you got to kind of course, there's other identifiers on the rifle, but that's the first thing with the trunnion mark. So anyways, the Russian triangle. And then Tula will be a star. So there's your two Russian ones, a triangle with an arrow and a star.
A triangle with a star?
Just a star.
Just a plain old star, nothing else.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and you AK fans who are also gardeners, who are in not really hot areas, there is a heirloom tomato variety called Black from Tula. And so it is a tomato variety from that area where they didn't have a whole lot of heat. They had a lot of fog, and it is a winner. So if you love AKs and you love tomatoes, check out Black from Tula.
That was deep.
There you go.
I like it.
Okay,
all right.
So two identifying for Russia, the star, and then the triangle with an arrow with the feathers on it. The
Yep.
What are they called, Andrew?
Fletch.
Fletch. There you go. With fletches. Thank you. Andrew's a bow hunter.
Oh, okay. You'll see those same proof marks on mags, typically like the Bakelite mags. On the bottom right side of the Bakelites, you'll have the star or the triangle.
So I'm looking at some Bakelites right now. I've got a star. I've got two with stars. And then
That's what I got.
Two with the triangle with the arrow with the fletch on it.
Do you want to sell all those?
No, I just bought them from Brian, so no.
And if you guys can see my mic stand right now, this is my microphone. And those are all Bakelites I'm literally, my microphone is perched on 4 Bakelite.
He's using his Bakelites as a microphone prop.
I'll get it back down. There they are there.
I don't want to get too off topic, but since I have a Bakelite in my hand, on the other side from that proof mark is usually a number.
Yes.
That number, to my knowledge, and if I'm wrong, somebody correct me on the internet, corresponds to the form that it was formed in. So they have different vats that these were done in big batches. So you might have a bunch that have the same number. They were just done in the same form, and then
form as in the mold. Is that what you're talking about?
The mold. Yeah.
Okay.
Mold.
It's the mold number, the mold ID number.
Gotcha.
Yep. Bakelites that's where it's at right there.
Now, since we're on the magazines, and we'll jump back to the rifles. There's also some like handwritten stuff on some of these too. And I got a Circle K right here on this one.
Yeah, those ones I sold you, Marty, had never been used before, and they have a bunch of inspector marks on them.
Okay.
Is it ink, like purple ink?
Yeah, it's like purple dye or ink or something like that. One's got a circle with a K, and then on the other side it's got a triangle with a P in it. And OTK9 is looks like it might be stamped in there.
Yeah, those are like acceptance stamps for like quality and things like that. That sounds like that might be Cyrillic that's on those.
So these are like inspector stamps, is that what you're saying? So they go through the factory and then because they're in certain areas too. So this guy's inspecting this area of the mag. this guy's inspecting this area of the mag or some aspect, and then the Circle K is doing something over here on the other side?
Yeah, so that's actually, we'll get into that maybe next year after we talk about the Arsenal mark, is there's a whole lot of, well, I can just jump into it if now's a good time, but there's a bunch of marks on your AK that you probably have never noticed before that are like that. Particularly on the bolt, and often on the bolt carrier as well, you'll see funny shaped dings, like a letter V is very common on bolts, and those are all just the inspectors as they move through. They'll actually use a punch and stamp the inspection approval in. And if you look up proof stamps on Google, you'll find there's whole alphabets that are used in metalworking and ironworking to be used as that sort of inspection mark. And
that's done through the whole build process, correct? And then at the very end, they get the final like proof mark stamped, correct?
I don't know that. Like I said, you guys, this is the deep end of the pool for me. So yeah, not sure.
I mean, I don't know that either. I was more curious. I know like this one I'm holding, this 1969 Ishmash, and this is just a cross section cut. I don't know if you can see it cut from the barrel and receiver, but it has 5 different inspection stamps on this little section. One of them is on or 2 of them are on the trunnion itself, and then 3 of them are on the receiver. So as it went through the production, it probably got stamped a bunch with little markings from the different inspectors, like you said. But I know on like the East German production, their proof mark, I guess I'll call it, is an oval with a K and a 3 in the oval. That actually isn't necessarily their proof mark of the factory. They had 2 factories that built rifles for East Germany, Suhl and Weise, and those both used K3 as an inspection stamp to say this is fit for service. And then if it had that, it was okay to go out. So I wasn't sure if that was the case with all of these or not. But anyways, that's why I asked.
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's a good one to ask some of the
lead heads.
At the lead heads and a couple of there's a few they're sort of like Yoda that hide off in the woods that I call occasionally, and maybe I can call one of them up and ask Yoda what's up.
There you go.
Well, what you're going to find out about that kind of information is, once again, with AKs, it varies greatly. Such as like the Chinese factories, each individual part, say like a bolt or a bolt carrier, before they're fitted, they're tested for metallurgy or whatever. So you'll see maybe a half circle. You'll see a couple different types of small stamps in those parts. And then when they're assembled together, head spaced and fitted, then it'll get an additional stamp. But you'll see that in Germany, Russia, the stuff that's currently coming from Ishmash and from, like Bulgaria. You'll still see that kind of stuff, just like an AR-15, an MPI bolt. That's just, every bolt is MPI tested, but that's not the proof mark. That's just for that particular part. You're going to see the same thing in AKs. But the final proof mark or inspector's mark is always going to be on the final product. In other words, the completely assembled firearm. But different countries did it in different ways. Like you're talking about the German proof for service. That's different than like proof house marking. So yeah, it varies greatly depending on country manufacturer. But you will see those little markings on pretty much all of your, especially your hardened parts. Any steel that's a hardened steel part, you're going to find those on more often than you'll find them on the soft steel parts, like a top cover, for instance.
Right.
You won't see those as often. But yeah, so just like everything else with AKs, it varies greatly.
And Drew brings up a really good point on hardness testing. The proof mark for hardness testing is, you'll see a little, it looks like a pinprick or somebody hit it with a center punch, and that's the small scar that a hardness tester leaves. And I'll often see 2 or 3 of those on our parts coming in from Poland. And it's great because I know that somebody checked the hardness 3 different times on that one.
Now, you've got one of those in your facility there, Brian, because you showed it to me when I was there.
Yeah, for the first 100 guns, we collected hardness data on everything coming in to build up statistics on what the variations are. And we stopped after we realized after 100 that the results were incredibly boring and consistent, and that we could trust the proof mark of the facility we were working with. And so, we all of our internal stuff, we make trunnions and a whole bunch or rear trunnions, and all the steel parts that we make, we check as well. The weirdest thing that I've ever seen hardness tested, but I'm glad they do, is on the inside surface of most safeties, the sheet metal lever itself. If you look on the inside face of there, you'll often see a place where they ground away the oxide to bright metal and hardness tested it right kind of smack dab in the middle of the lever on the inside surface. And then they'll typically coat over it with oxide again at the end. But for all this talk of AKs being made in caves, the amount of proof marks and inspection marks that you see would definitely give the lie to that.
Showing a different story, isn't it? Yeah,
yep.
Definitely. Yep. Definitely showing that they're very heavily inspected and proven. So we talked about Romania, the square with what we're going to call an arrow. It's not square, but triangle with a stick in the middle of the bottom of it. Looks like an arrow. And then Russia has the triangle with the arrow and the fletches. And those what we're signifying here is factory marking. So in Romania, it's the CUGIR factory. How would you say that?
Cougar. That's how I pronounce it.
Okay. Yeah. Cougar, Kujir. Russia, that's the Izhevsk, IZHEVSK factory. And there's two. Go ahead.
Izhevsk is how most people pronounce that. But
Izhevsk. I'm not Russian, so that's good. And then there's another one for the Molot factory. And it looks more like a sheriff's kind of badge, where it's got.
Yeah, there was a gentleman that asked about that on the social media.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull it up here. I believe he said he has a Bakelite magazine that had the outline of a badge with a star in the center of it. What does this symbol mean?
Okay.
That's the Molot symbol.
That's the.
And they did make Bakelites. Yeah, they did make Bakelites. So, anyways, for that gentleman, that's
very
what
cool.
that was.
And then also in Russia, there's just a star. They have just the 5-point star there, and that's the Tula factory. Tula. All right, so that's got us caught up. Now, where do you want to go next, James?
I think
what countries?
There's a couple more that are pretty popular.
Yeah.
Bulgaria. Bulgarian rifles are obviously super popular. Most common is the 2 circles with the number 10 in it, which kind of call it Circle 10, I guess. And you'll see those on a lot of the mags too. Waffle mags are probably the second most popular mag or desirable outside of the Bakelite. So you'll see that on those. And then it's not uncommon to see 21 or 25 within 2 circles as well. And I think the ones I've seen most on mags of those are 545 mags. And those are just other factories. So they're numbered Factory 10, Factory 21, and Factory 25. And all of those, I believe, are through Arsenal, Bulgaria. And then Poland. Poland is an oval with an 11. I have one of those over here also. And what else we got?
What about, did we talk about North Korea?
North Korea is a circle with a star. So getting back to that from earlier, if you happen to see some Asian writing and you go to your trunnion, see a circle with a star, just email me right away. Don't tell anybody. You don't want to do that. You just want to email me and contact me, and we'll get this figured out.
And if it's a Type 58 model, it'll have that circle star, and it'll have like a 58 underneath it with a Chinese symbol to the right of that. Looks like maybe a house or something.
Yeah, so the Type 58 is going to be a milled gun. That was their first, attempt at AKs. And then 10 years later, in 1968, they came out with the stamped. So it'll be pretty obvious difference between the two for that reason. Then, of course, the 68 or the 58. But
yeah. The
And then if you
Yugoslavian AKs. What would you?
Yeah, Yugo will have the Zastava logo. I don't even know how to explain that. How to?
It's a
describe
circle
that.
with like a double Z on the inside with another maybe half circle kind of inside the big circle.
It's very artistic.
Yeah, but it basically they're doing a Z. It's like a Z.
Yeah, so the Yugoslavians always like to do things a little bit different. They're kind of like
They're
the Czechs
fancy
in that manner. They always like to do stuff just a little bit different than everybody else's stuff.
And there's another where they spell it out. Zastava Kurglig. I don't know how to say that.
Iraq's a cool one. The Tabuks, which again, this is one of those where if you find it, you just call me right away. There is a company making modern production, like in the United States, like replicas, and they do a pretty good job. So if you find one, it's probably not real. It's real, but it's a modern production.
And there's a couple of different markings on that one too.
And it's like it's a circle with the Lion of Babylon in it. It's very unique looking. To my understanding, what happened on that was in the early days of the war, we bombed their arms factory where they were made, and that was that. It ceased production that day, and they've never been back. And then during the Iraq War, any weapons caches that were found, things were put in big piles and burned. So there's not a lot of Tabuks floating around out there, but they'll be Yugo ish, but with the Lion of Babylon.
The Tubak, it'll have that marking you're saying, but it'll have some writing before and after it.
And I think
for the
that's
Tabuk.
I think that's the serial number, date, that kind of thing, but in Arabic.
In Arabic.
If I yeah.
And then they've also got a triangle with an upside down 2 that has a dot in the bottom of the 2 there. From what I'm seeing here, if I'm describing that. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, and then so it's kind of like an Arabic looking
7 maybe, or an upside down 2.
The other ones that you might see with Arabic stuff on them, of course, would be way more common in the United States, and that's the Mahdi's from Egypt. And you'll get the Factory 54 mark on those, which is like, I don't know how to paint that picture either. I don't think I'm very descriptive. But
So what I'm looking at, it does the date, I guess the year, and then there's like a little circle with a T. The T goes across the top of the circle and then in through the center of the circle drops down.
And then on either side of that T, that drop down, are the letters or the numbers 54 in Arabic. Okay. And that's the fact.
Gotcha.
So that's the actual proof mark, that T with the circle thing.
What about Czech? Czechoslovakia.
Not super up on Czechoslovakia. It's more of a variant. I wouldn't, not necessarily AK. I mean, it's AK inspired. I've never actually seen the proof marks on that in real life, but it's like a crossed swords.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah. There's
proof.
The cross swords. It's cross swords in the date.
Yeah, that's pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
And then I think there was, so Hungary is another unique one because there's not really a proof mark to be found usually on the guns, but Hungarian mags are fairly popular because they have a little moon man on them, and it's usually stamped on the spine. So that's kind of a neat proof mark just to talk about because, when you see metal AK mags and you look at the spine, if you find the little moon man, it's like aha.
Is that one of those where if they find that and give you a call?
Yeah,
Is that one of those?
I'll buy it.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, they're pretty neat. It's just one of those. Mags are a lot different. There's a lot more markings and interesting things at mags. There's definitely a whole following to collect mags, but we'll keep it simple here and just stick with the trunnions and proof marks for the rifles. But.
Sure. Did you want to get into the German markings?
Yeah, German has a lot, and most of those are inspection markings. So the K3 is the most common because that's the one they usually stamped on the trunnion, and it's actually typically usually in the little cutout where the barrel pin goes through. So it's not in a common spot. It's just about a ½ inch off from that. The other markings, like there's the diamond with the circle is usually found in the barrel. So some of those other ones are inspection marks. There is the, I guess it's called the sun or whatever, and it'll have a C or a W in it. That, if you find that, that's pretty neat. That's a lot rarer, I think, in my opinion. Those correspond to the two factories. So the C would be, I think, the Sewell, and the W would be the Wisa or Wise factory. And those are, like I say, a lot more rare. I've not seen those in real life either, but pretty cool. If you find them, call me. I'm interested.
There you go. And then there's another one that's a kind of a triangle that's turned like a diamond with a circle inside of it.
Yeah, that's the barrel inspection stamp.
Barrel inspection. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
and then there's one that's got a circle with a 06 in it also.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
go
ahead. No, you go ahead.
Here's a fun question. What does cutting edge Japanese engine technology and AK manufacture have in common?
I have no idea.
Germans?
That's brilliant. No, on the barrel of ComBlock made guns, the fits are super critical between all the press fits. If you do it wrong, you either have a barrel that falls out or one where you bend the barrel trying to push it in. So there's a 3 bears problem there. And the way that the commies dealt with that was they had a classification system that went 1 through 4. 1 was undersized, meaning that it was a smaller diameter than what you thought, or what was from nominal. 2 is nominal, 3 is slightly oversized, and 4 is grossly oversized. And we're talking about 10,000ths of an inch. So a 30th of a piece of typing paper is a 10,000th. And that, a few tenths really does matter. And so that's how the commies dealt with getting the interference fit right for all those press fits. And the Japanese have done exactly the same thing with pistons in engine blocks. And I may have said this before, but I think it's so cool it bears repeating. And the way the Japanese deal with this is they have like a color code system, or numbers and letters very similar to 1 through 4. And when you go to redo a head, you just look at the code that's on the engine and you buy the proper head to fit in that bore without having to jack around and size stuff or lap stuff in. And I don't know a lot about engines, so you engine nerds out there, forgive me for butchering that a bit. But the commies, again, with quality and with tolerancing, were well ahead of their time on that one.
Very cool.
And so you'll see those marks. You'll actually see 4 numbers, 1 through 4, on the barrel in front of the rear sight base, under the gas tube. And the one that's furthest away from the receiver corresponds to the front sight base. The second number corresponds to the gas block. The third is the rear sight base, and the fourth is the barrel to the trunnion connection.
Very cool.
So you have a commie barrel, which do exist. The HW Bush banned, I believe it was HW, put regulations in place that banned the importation of foreign barrels that were in a non-sporter configuration. So you don't see a lot of it anymore, but if you do, that's an OG barrel.
Yeah, there's a ton of them out there. You just got to be lucky and find them.
Yeah, if you do, just make sure you give me a call.
Again.
That's going to be the theme of this show, by the way.
Call James. Yeah.
Yeah, just call me when you find cool stuff.
The places I need to take James.
Oh, yeah. You guys are going to have fun for sure.
So one thing we haven't touched on much, and we didn't do this, we did a little bit during the selector markings, but we haven't got it on a proof marks, and it's probably pretty important for listeners, is the Chinese proof marks. There's so many factories, and more than any of the other countries. And the thing that's interesting is, well, first of all, they're quality built rifles. When people who don't know AKs think Chinese, they just think, like everything in America that's made in China, it's just junk. And that's the absolute opposite in the AK world. The things are built like tanks. They're thicker. That was beautiful, by the way. You should just hold that up again. They're usually thicker metal. The rivet pattern is a little different on the front trunnion to support better, and allegedly, and they're just neat. They're really high quality builds. The finish is better, and then like the one he was just holding up, the spiker, they build the bayonet into the front. They're really cool. And getting back to the Bush thing. During that era, that had to go away. They got rid of the threads, they got rid of the bayonet, they got rid of the stocks, so that they could get rid of the pistol grip and put a thumbhole stock on them. So there's a lot of unique variants floating around out there, and most of them have some sort of significant value, and a lot of people want them. So it's interesting to point out, and definitely something we should cover on the factories on that. So
okay, let's do it.
All right, so. Basically, there's two types of proof marks. There's round ones and triangles. The triangles were intended, or were from factories that were intended for military use. The ovals were intended to be exported mostly to the United States. So that's kind of the general rule of thumb, not totally set in stone, but that's the general rule of thumb. The most common are the 66 within a triangle, and then the 386 within the oval.
The what? Say that again.
A 386.
386. Okay.
Yep, they're all pretty much all numbered, and they correspond to different state factories in China from different provinces. Which one is that you got there?
This is a 386. Hold on.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Is that a Polytech?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Polytech's most Polytech guns came from 386, and Norinkos came from 66. Although some Norinkos did come from factory 386 as well. There's also what's that?
Pistols, like they made a lot of the 386 Tokarevs or Chinese Tokarevs. Yeah, that were Norinco branded, but came out of 386.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with China is to know that like the two big companies that pop up on Chinese guns are Polytech and Norinco, but they didn't make this stuff. They're just export companies. The stuff was contracted to the state factories. So if you see a Norinco stamp and no proof mark, it was made at one of these factories. They just didn't proof it. And that's very common. Most Mac 90s won't have a proof mark on them, but they're still a high quality gun worth getting your hands on for the right price. So other factory numbers would be a 26 within a triangle, a 36 within a triangle, a 416 within a triangle. That one's pretty common also. So yeah, there's just a bunch out there, and there's not a lot of great information on some of these factories either. So because they kind of got that layer of protection with having export companies versus the state factories. So those are things to look for. If you see proof marks, a lot of times they're more pre-ban guns, because during that Bush ban era, they basically made guns specifically to fit that. And that's when you started seeing like the Mac 90 Sporters that came in with those thumbhole stocks, or commonly referred to as the butthole stock. And you can refang them. You can take those guns. The threads are ground down, but you can sleeve that and rethread them. There's a company there or out now that makes
and rethread one right there.
There you go. Yeah, and there's a company now that makes a front sight block that has the bayonet built into it. I think it's a couple $100, so you can press off your front sight block, put that buck on, blue it to match. You'll have to, Dremel out your handguard to fit that spiker back on there, but that's doable. And then even the stocks, it's tough. It's tough to find the wood, but depending on your thumbhole stock, you might be able to route out a stock from that and kind of refang the whole thing and make a Type 56 again. But anyways, the Type 56 Chinese AK is highly desirable. If you find those, make sure you give me a call.
Yeah, we actually talked about that in the first season.
Did you? Okay, yeah.
The AK Corner, we did a big long thing about Chinese AKs, because I'm obviously a big fan.
Are you? Okay, yeah.
Of the Chinese AKs, and of course, like I've told, the listeners have probably heard me say this a million times, but Chinese AKs, Mac 90s are some of the best AKs made.
Absolutely.
As far as durability, I've got Mac 90s that I've put. I couldn't even tell you how many rounds, because I've been shooting them since I was 15. A long time. Just insane.
And Andrew's like 72.
Yeah, the bolts will mushroom out a little bit, but they still run like a champ.
Yeah, beautiful.
I've been very impressed at the few Mac 90s that have run through our shop. We don't, especially right now, we don't do any custom work, but I had one of our pro shooters sent me a year ago a Mac 90 to work on, and it had been partially Occamized, and it didn't go well, and so he sent it to us for a redo. Yeah, and I have been just overwhelmingly impressed by the design changes, exactly what you were referring to, James, with the front trunnion, the way it's put together. They necked down the barrel journal, and by doing that, they put a whole lot more metal into the trunnion than is present on the AKM style. And what that allows you to do is use crappier metal. It either lets you be more lazy or lets you make it stronger, depending on what your ethics are. But I think that it is hard to argue. Well, I would argue that it's a better design, flat out. And yeah, they're just great guns. Yep.
They put a lot of attention to detail too. You pretty much, if you find a Chinese AK, it's got a nice, clean finishing all over. The way all the edges meet, and things aren't burred and sharp, and they're blued finishes. I mean, they're very. When you pick them up, you feel it. This is real. It's not just thrown together quickly, which is very impressive coming from China. But yeah, they're just great guns. So, anyways, I guess we saved the best for last on the proof marks there, but there's quite a bit to look into on those ones.
But guys, also, if you don't see proof marks, a lot of them will just say Norinco on the side of them, and that's the mark. But those guns are going to be coming from 66 or 386 or one of the two major factories. So don't be discouraged if you don't see that proof mark. If that's still a good quality Chinese AK with or without that proof mark.
There's even some where they'll inscribe "Made in China" on them, and it looks like it was done with like
a pencil,
hammer, and a nail, and they just like chiseled at it. It'll be really janky, but that's probably a good indicator you found a good piece. So yeah, start checking out the rest of it at that point.
So that would be a good question is, how would I know if something's a knockoff or not? What's a telltale sign that somebody's trying to counterfeit one of these?
On the Chinese, I would look right at the rivet pattern on the front trunnion. It will be distinctly different than the rest. I'm not sure, I guess, really how to explain the difference, but the orientation of the rivets on the front trunnion are different, and it'll be a blued finish. Not a lot of people are going to be making a knockoff gun and taking the time to blue all the surfaces. That's a whole nother level of kind of finish work in gunsmithing, and the receiver it'll be thicker. So if you're familiar with AK receivers, it's a thicker metal. It's definitely it's built like
1.5 mil instead of 1 mil like you'll typically see.
Yeah. So if you're counterfeiting an AK, you're probably not going to be messing around with trying to counterfeit a Chinese AK. There's just not much money in it for what you would be putting into it.
What? One area where it would be real easy is the import marking. So like when a gun is made overseas, it'll say made in Kugir if it's a Romy, for example, and then you'll see, and it's federally required, imported by CAI Arms, which is a wing of Century. And there are some Bubba Chinese kits out there, and they will not have the importer listed on the receiver there. And so, yeah, definitely just because they're Chinese parts doesn't make it a good gun. But if it says Norinco imported by CAI, or there's a few other companies now defunct that used to import them, that to me would be the gold stamp of approval.
That's just it too. As far as the companies, there's only a few importers that brought all those in. And yeah, once you know those couple names to look for, it's going to stand right out. So
okay, very good. So anything else as far as marks or anything that we want to go into before we get to our listener questions?
I think we could dig into it like for hours and hours.
Right, and we're keeping this high level right now, so.
Yeah, I'd say we cut to some questions and dig into that for a few minutes, and we can save a lot of the really gushy stuff for the future. I mean, we can get into mags and all sorts of stuff. So, just for the sake of not boring everybody for hours.
Okay. So, magazines. Anything else important you think on magazines that we want to touch on? What about other parts that come with AKs? Like I've got this cleaning kit that came with my Polish AK. That
it's
we're talking about,
Marty.
huh?
Called an oiler.
An oiler?
Yeah, so that's a good one. Most people don't know why there's two kinds of oil in the oiler. One of them is to neutralize, as I understand it, it's got something in it that neutralizes the salts and corrosive primers, and that's one symbol, and the other one is the oil that you finish with. Is that your guys' understanding on that sucker there?
It is.
That sounds great.
That's great.
To even bring it down simpler, one's for cleaning, one's for lubricating.
There you go.
Perfect. So on the one I'm looking at,
plastic ones.
That's what she said.
Yeah. It's got a P with like a side X and then the S with a little M. And this is the Polish.
So I'll go super nerd right here. The plastic ones are pretty boring, but when you get into the older metal two-side ones,
yeah,
they have some interesting markings on some of those.
Yeah, that's what I've got right here. These are metal. So probably for another show again, but.
Let's go to some questions.
Great info there. So yeah, let's go to our listener questions here.
Are you starting on Instagram or Facebook?
Let's start on Instagram.
Okay.
We'll start off on the gram.
The gram.
And just go through there. I mean, if you see something interesting that looks like you want to field, let's just field it.
Is Cyrillic Bakelite worth the extra money? I'm going with a Bakelite is worth the extra money. That's my answer. That's my answer. Any Bakelite is worth the extra money.
And how do you know if it's real Bakelite versus a counterfeit Bakelite?
I don't know if I've ever seen. Maybe mine are all counterfeit. I don't know if I even know the difference. But one of the things that
talking about the fake light Duracoat, Cerakote jobs.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh,
it's
you
obvious.
Can definitely tell. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Yeah, when if the orange is the plastic and not paint, it's probably Bakelite. On Bakelite mags, the thing that's desirable is on the front, on the curved side, the part that indexes the mag well first. Mm-hmm. There's no like rib from the metal. It's just smooth. I don't know how to explain that. So when you go to catch the mag well and jam your mag in, there's no chance of catching anything other than the tip. But if you have that lip on the metal mags, you can actually catch the wrong part in the mag well and awkwardly place your mag so it'll feel like it latched in, but it's actually crooked, and you will not, you'll jam your gun. So what's nice on Bakelites is that's just smooth right there. And you'll see guys that really kind of train a lot. They'll take metal mags and they'll Dremel that, but then it's not pretty anymore. So that's what's cool about Bakelites is they're durable and they're made to be run hard.
Who asked that question? Did you read who asked it?
It was, let me see here.
That's
actually the question was from Dickie the Third. Is Cyrillic Bakelite worth the extra money? So what he's referring to is there's, I believe has to do with the number or the form. There'll be like Cyrillic. Oh God, I had an article on this the other day. I was reading on this actually. They're just a more unique mag. They're a more unique mag, and actually, I think the spine on the back is different too. It's not subdued like the one I'm holding now. It's more like pressed in. So there's like variances, and it's more of a collector's thing. And so, for the collector value, sure, I'd pay a little extra. Cool. But first and foremost, when I'm getting into this stuff, I'm absolutely looking for the functionality. So, when it comes to any Bakelite, I'm all about that.
What about the
Cyrillic.
floor plates on the bake lights? Because I've got two here, and they got two different floor plates on them. Is that anything that needs to be of concern?
I actually don't know anything about them, but mine has some weird markings too that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. So while you're looking at that, there's another bake light. Since we're on bake light, we'll finish up bake lights here. Which is more rare, sought after? Robots, WTF asked this, Tulla or the Ishmash bake lights? Which are more rare?
A lot. Is that what you said first?
It says, which are more rare, sought after, Tulla or Ishmash bake lights?
Ah, man. Anybody got an answer on that one? I have the equal amount of both, so I don't know that I've had any harder time finding either one.
I think they're probably equally as common. There's a lot of both of them on the market. Well, as much as a lot of Bakelite, I see lots of both of those. Honestly, probably the one I see the least number of is the Malat.
Or China.
Well, yeah, Chinese and German Bakelites obviously are super rare.
Yeah, I think that would be the holy grail there. If you find those, make sure you call me.
Dickie the Third asked several questions, but you've did one there. Here's another Bakelite. I saw a Bakelite magazine that had the outline of a badge with a star. You read that earlier, right? So we answered that one.
That was the
Tandem Dooley, do the mags also have markings, and what mag works the best across all AK makes and manufacturers? We'll take the second part of that. Do you guys have an opinion on which mag works the best across all the AK platforms?
Circle 10 waffles, man. I've been running them for years and years, and they're just tough as nails. I actually like them better than running Bakelites. I've had more trouble with Bakelites than I have with Circle 10 waffle mags.
You shut your damn mouth, sir.
but Bakelites are the prettiest.
Okay.
It's a good argument. It's a really good argument. I think, you're either one or the other there, and they're fairly closely interchangeable. You can't go wrong with either one, in my opinion.
And shameless plug. U.S. Palm mags are designed. We're basically inspired by Circle 10 Bulgarian mags. So you'll see the metal inserts on the U.S. Palm mags are basically the same as the Circle 10 Bulgies. The pattern on the outside is obviously a little different, and there's some design differences, but the dimensions of the U.S. Palm mags and the metal insert on the U.S. Palm mags are pretty much spot on, copied from the Circle 10 waffle mags.
And the
You just triggered a thought in my head on that Cyrillic question about the Bakelites. I believe, and don't quote me on this, you'll have to vet this information, but I believe the Cyrillic ones don't have metal feed lips, whereas the rest of the Bakelites, some do, some don't. So to answer his question, it might actually not be worth the extra money because you're not going to have metal feed lips. But it triggered a thought from the other day when I was reading that article. So anyways, vet that one. Yeah. Anyway.
On the Century mags, I'm pleased to report that it appears there's been a mold change that I think Andrew probably pushed through, where they now fit in our guns. So we're very pleased that.
Let me go ahead and dash your hopes there. So we started making a 30R mag, which is a range mag. It's a less expensive mag without the metal insert. So that does change the dimensions slightly, which helps them fit into some of the Occam guns.
Oh, okay, got it.
Well, with your little side plate thing, whatever it's called. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it's called.
Oh, yeah, the Kirkham shelf, they won't fit at all. I mean, on the non-Kirkham shelf versions,
it should fit fine in those.
Yep. Yeah. That's been, that's what we're seeing is that they are fitting now, which is great.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I've got the Kirkham shelf, and the U.S. Palms do not fit in that.
Yep. You get there's trade-offs with everything, and one of the Kirkham shelf, developed by Jeff Kirkham in Afghanistan, it takes between a quarter and a second off of our pro shooters' reload times. So they work even better for beginners who don't have a really good feeling, kinesthetic sense of where the mag should go. It can save 10 seconds if you would have screwed up otherwise. But it's something that adds value for pretty much any shooter. But there's a trade-off there where waffle mags and drums are a no-go. And so, just for those that are sure about how they like to run a gun, the Kirkham Shelf is great. And if you want to be able to run all mags everywhere, the Kirkham Shelf is not what you want.
Okay, let's go to Bailey Muller 80. Where would the markings be on the bolt carrier bolt? What countries, U.S. companies are use the best metals in their production?
Century, obviously.
Well, so where would the markings be on the bolt carrier bolt? I think we went over that. Let's just highlight it again.
Yeah, we kind of covered that earlier. So just basically the serial number and will be on the side of the carrier, and then on the bolt it'll be where the step down is from where it goes from big to small.
Okay.
And we serialize our bolts in the little fluting relief that's kind of an oil pocket. We serialize our bolt carriers on the left-hand side, which is common with most of the European countries, like for sure Hungary, and I think Poland as well do it over there. I haven't had the pleasure of building a Russian kit, so I'm not sure where those are, but that's where we stick them.
Okay.
Oh, and actually one of James's businesses does all of our laser engraving. So if you're a 1775 owner, all of the logos and serial numbers and everything is, James has a sweatshop that his parents are on. If you want to look for that, we should do a separate episode, James, with your parents on how to raise kids that will love you after they're out from under your thumb, because James' relationship with his parents is really beautiful. And I often marvel at his dad, like those dudes play hockey together still.
Well, it's like we said earlier, the family that builds AKs together stays together.
Yeah, so James probably won't
awesome, man.
pumping his tires here, but he set up a whole business for his parents to run as a retirement business. And I think we should all aspire to raise children that love us enough to take care of us in our old age. And so anyway, yeah, James's family, I know his dad real well. And I don't think I've met his mom, but it's just a really cool thing. And so you're also supporting a family business.
Mom,
What's that?
So you stay away from my mom, Brian.
This episode of the Talking Lead AK Corner, Season 2, is brought to you in part by Occam Defense. The guys at Occam love the AK, but didn't love burning their hands, getting cut by their pre-sharpened gun, or the lack of options for accessories. After spending a few years in the lab, they've recently released the ODS 1775, which brings the best of the AR family to the Kalashnikov's reliability. It's still an AK under the hood. AK mags, forged Polish AK parts, but with American aerospace manufacturing practices and ingenuity. Check them out at OccamDefense.com or on Instagram at Occam Defense Solutions. All right, back to the questions. The Gens reloaders. This would be a fun question for you guys. Have you ever had a catastrophic malfunction in an AK? What happened?
The only accident I've ever had with an AK was I have interns and my children loading all the mags that we were under the range with. And one time a 5.45 round made it into a mag and made it into the chamber. And I was pointing down range, pulled the trigger, and I heard a funny sort of fizzling sound. And nothing bad happened, but I did get a bunch of gunpowder in my face. Good reason to wear safety glasses. And that's the worst that I have to talk about. I don't know if anybody else has had one.
No, just trigger issues is all I've ever had.
Yeah, so you know how many AKs I have, Marty. You've seen a lot of them. You know how long I've been shooting them. I got my first one when I was 12.
Yeah, you're 12 and you're 72 now. Happy birthday, by the way, everybody. Andrew just had a birthday.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. And but literally with all of that shooting, including working for AK companies and torture testing guns, shooting upwards of 30 and 40,000 rounds out of some guns, I personally have never had an AK have a terminal failure. Now, mind you, I also don't own any bottom barrel AKs. I've never put 20,000 rounds through a Mahdi or or things like that. But truthfully, I've never personally had one. Now, saying that, I have seen people have a ton of terminal breakdowns with AK-47s, intentionally and unintentionally. A vast majority of those terminal failures, though, have to do with ammunition. So definitely, when you're out there and you're buying surplus ammo, guys, look at it before you put it. While you're putting in your mag, check it, look at it, make sure it's safe.
Good
so
point.
that's really your biggest thing with large terminal failures and AKs. Most of the time can be ammunition related.
Good point. Good point. So actually, that wasn't the fun question. My thumb moved and I read that one, but that was from the Gens Reloaders. The fun question is from the Oh Yeah guy. If you could go back in time to 1980 with $5,000 in cash to buy guns, what do you buy?
Polytechs all day long.
Brian?
I don't know if Dragunovs were available in 1980, but there was a time when what they were. So I would get a mix of Dragunovs and then, the Solothurn anti-tank weapon. Get 2 or 3 of those.
Are we talking just AKs or are we talking anything?
It says anything. If you could go back, he didn't limit it. I mean, this is an AK show, but he just said if you could go back to 1980 with $5,000, you got $5,000.
Yeah.
And I'm not done yet because it's $1980, and I would also get a pile of PKM machine gun kits to circle back around to the AK. That's
all I would buy is machine guns. I would only buy full autos because they're worth 50 times more than they were in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like I could buy, like, in 1980, I could have bought a full auto Mac for like $300 plus a $200 tax stamp, and now sell them for $10,000.
Yeah.
Give this man the prize. He won that contest.
That's a poor argument because you wouldn't sell them.
Yeah, no, you're right. I wouldn't. But like a full auto AK in the 80s, you could have gotten a full auto, registered AK for probably around $2,500. Now you're talking $25,000 to $30,000.
Yeah. So you would buy 2 full autos versus a whole bunch of Polytechs.
Yeah, if you're straight up talking money, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you got $5,000 in cash, and you're going back to the 80s. $5,000 is $5,000, I guess, no matter where you're at. I mean, if you took $5,000 worth of gold, then you got even more money. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So all right, that's a fun question.
Actually, $5,000 in machine guns would be a better payoff than $5,000 worth of gold.
Well, yeah, nowadays, yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for investment, though, I'm flipping through this AK book right now, and it's got ads scanned in here from back in the day. It doesn't say the exact dates. Like, here's Norinco Mac 90s for $100. Yep, here's a sale. Here's a sale for Chinese drums, $5.95 each.
Oh wow!
You guys,
I don't know what era this is, but $5,000 could go a long way if you're looking for an investment.
Yeah,
I'm reminded of our mutual friend James Yeager. What he would be screaming right now is, "You guys don't understand. These are the good old days." And what he means is, nothing in guns will ever get cheaper.
Yeah.
Especially with how volatile things are right now. I mean, right now things are high, but like you can still get 30 rounders off the shelf, and that might not. I'm not saying there won't be a war if they're not available on the shelf. I'm just saying, like, it's always a good time to buy ammo and guns and magazines.
There you go.
Like for instance, this Chinese drum right here in my hand. In this Chinese pouch, so it's like for the listeners, it's like a green canvas pouch with wooden button loops. I bought 3 of these when I was probably 15 or 16 years old, and they were $8.99 each. That was
Did you want to sell them?
Pouch.
Hey, Andrew.
I'll give you $10.
No way, man.
You can double your money right now.
Hell of an investment.
You $20 each right now.
So yeah, these are cool, and they're even padded on the back so they don't bang you up on the.
All right, we're gonna move on with our questions. Red light and orange stripes. No question, but I just want to say thanks for organizing and keeping the AK Corner going. Always look forward to each episode and enjoy the content. Thanks for the hard work and keep it up. Well, thank you guys for the support, because without you, the listeners, and the participation that you guys put into sending me emails, responding to our post, we wouldn't be doing this. So thank you guys. And thank our sponsors, too. Thank our sponsors. All right, let's go to Facebook. Did you see more on Instagram you guys wanted to answer, or you're going to jump to Facebook now? Let's see. Brad Reynolds, what's the difference between a Wasser 10 and a Wasser 1063? On the bolt carrier, what does the circle with the F in the middle mean?
On a Wasser 10?
So he wants to know first what's the difference between a Wasser 10 and a Wasser 10-63?
Now, as far as that bolt marking, I do not know. But I'm assuming it's a proof mark. I don't know exactly which marking it is. So the deal with Wassers is, so Century has been bringing Romanian product into the country for years and years and years and years. So there's a lot of Wassers that were brought in as complete guns before the ban, like thousands and thousands of like actual surplus Wassers. Guns that were manufactured in the 60s and 70s and early 80s that were brought into the country. And then there's a ton of Wassers that are brand new, made at Cousier, brand new guns that are just manufactured and shipped. So there's a lot of different variation out there in the market. But the 1063 is basically the single stack receiver gun with the chrome line barrel. It was like anywhere from the 60s to probably the 80s, maybe late 80s. Could have been manufactured, like as far as the barrels go. You'd have to really look at the serial number to know for sure. But they were brought in and then machined out, basically. So they were made off kits. It was an early version to get around the ban, basically. So they would pick the parts, put them on a single stack receiver, ship them to the U.S., and then we would convert them. But they were technically surplus rifles as opposed to a new manufactured rifle like they are now.
Okay. Anybody want to add to that? All right. Frijole Breeze, which means bean fart. Are there other features that give similar information like the markings, such as unique parts, fasteners, or assembly techniques that should also be considered or used in identifying, understanding AKs?
Yeah, I think, with the rivet pattern on the Chinese, I'm sure you guys have talked about obviously the Yugos being quite different. And but as far as, some of the more common ones, I mean, Hungarians pretty much stand out. You can look at the wood furniture, like handguards, whether they have a palm swell or not. I don't know, sights. Anybody else got anything that kind of would be an identifier? I mean, a hooded front sight's a pretty good indicator you're already looking at Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Hungarian trunnions are squared off in the front. If you take the handguard off, instead of there being kind of a chamfer on the left and right side, like at 430 and 730 on the clock face. On the Hungarian ones, they're straight across the bottom. Generally, the profile, the squared off front on a trunnion where the barrel pin is, that generally is associated with China, but I've seen Mahdi's that have it as well. Don't know if they got their parts from China or what, because I've seen them both ways. But it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think furniture is definitely a good starting point too, because German with their pebble stocks and laminate versus the regular. There's Hungarian furniture pretty much stands out, especially having the backwards front pistol grip.
The reverse dong is the technical term for that, James. Please,
reverse
use the
dong.
correct.
The Romy dong and Hungarian reverse dong. Any dong is a good identifier. You've already eliminated a lot of countries.
John Luecke. How would you say that? Lukey?
Lucky.
We'll call him Lucky.
But it sounds like an name.
We'll call him Lucky. John Lucky. I'm enjoying the AK Corner. I'm trying to make sense of all y'all are saying. Now my question, I'm thinking of putting an AK in my shooting collection. Where do I start? I don't like the stock. Are the variants easier on the shoulder? Are different ones, do different ones shoot differently? Thanks.
John, you're not going to like my answer, and I apologize. Don't change the stock. Instead, do some training.
There you go.
That's the. It sounds blunt. It sounds mean. It's the truth, though. I used to hate it. Also, I felt like it was just pounding my shoulder.
Shoot a 12 gauge and then go shoot your AK.
Yeah. Well, and I had a moment recently, and actually I saw this last year, but it got reinforced this year. I went and observed part of a Sonny Pazikas class, and this year I went and took one, and he did a demonstration that absolutely blew my mind, where he put the AK, like balanced it on his arm and pressed the trigger to debunk this recoil thing. Mm-hmm. And the AK doesn't jump off your hand or off your arm, off your forearm. There's hardly any, like, it goes back, undulates back, and it undulates forward, and it stays in position other than that. And so this concept of it pounding you only happens if you're tensing up and driving into the system as it's trying to drive back. But if you loosen up and you learn how to become one with that rifle and let it be an extension of yourself, you find that it's actually a really comfortable platform to run, and it stays on target a lot easier. So really it just comes down to learning how to kind of hold it, manipulate it, and run it, and not so much what stock you have on it, or what kind of, especially in AK, you're limited and you're looking at possibly a big mod to do. And there's really not anything I think is better out there.
No, personally. Not at all. And the recoil, like you said, I mean, it's really not that bad for an AK. I mean, if he's doing a build that's different, I would, then by all means get wild, because now you get to decide your rear trunnion, which gives you tons of options. But if you're buying an AK, there's not it's a good platform. There's not a lot you need to mess with right now,
So
I will say personally, from experience, I don't like underfolders to shoot as well.
Yeah,
I don't think they line up as well. So I do prefer a fixed stock. But underfolders do shoot well. You just have to learn how to shoot them. They're different.
And there's
a fixed stock.
There was a question earlier, I think, on Instagram about that. A guy asked what do we prefer better, a side folder or an underfolder, and so I will pull that in real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree. A side folder would absolutely be, to me, preferable than an underfolder. I think underfolders are unique and cool, but yeah. Yes, you're right.
I don't like shooting them, but I love
it's
having
an acquired feel. Yeah.
So I have a different take on this, but I think for average size males, I don't really disagree with either James or Andrew. But no individual is average. Everybody has something different about them. For me, I have really long arms, and the standard AK setup does not serve me well. The stock is fine, but the handguard where it is really close into my body, and I don't do the full Costa, but I go most of the way down the handguard when I'm being comfortable. And if I do that on a standard AK, I'm getting a 3rd-degree burn pretty quickly. So, but with respect to stocks, my wife is maybe 5'2", something like that. She's really small. She can't even shoulder a standard AK. She's bladed out so far that it's ridiculous. So it really does depend on who you are as a person and what your build is, whether you have any disabilities. But the rear trunnion, which a whole bunch of different folks are doing, we've moved to it as standard for exactly this reason, that everybody's built differently. Everybody has different preferences. And with the 1913 rear trunnions emerging as a standard, with one screw, you can change out your stock. And it's literally 2 minutes and you've got something completely different. The SIG side folding telescoping stock, I think Marty's running that most of the time on his 1775, regardless of what.
No, sir. I switched to the Occam honeycomb.
Yeah, the hex there.
Yeah, I like it much better.
I know you got to call it the honeycomb. I call it the hex.
Yeah.
But the other real issue that he's talking about with being easier on the shoulder is the vast majority of felt recoil on the shoulder is due to the bolt carrier on an AK, and the standard gas aperture on the barrel is sized for a machine gun, and it's massively overgassed so that it will function at -45 Fahrenheit and still be fine. Several companies, we're certainly not the first, Rifle Dynamics has been doing it for forever, has necked that aperture down, and the difference in felt recoil is pretty amazing without having that bolt carrier rocketing into your shoulder. All that said, what James said about, Sonny Pazikas's lecture is very correct. If you kind of softly cradle the gun, you have way less felt recoil and your shoulder getting beat up than if you're really hugging it hard into your shoulder the whole time. And it's worth doing. One thing that I do as a party trick to show new shooters is that I'm big enough to do this, but I can just shoot an AK rifle like it's a pistol, and I just put an outstretched arm and hold it one-handed, and I'll ring steel or something like that to just show that there's nothing. This is not a 12 gauge with 3.5 Magnum turkey loads in it. It's a pretty tame cartridge, all things considered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to leave John hanging either. I looked at the question a little more in depth, and it wasn't just about the stock. It was about, are other variants easier on the shoulder? And the answer would be yes in that regard. That obviously import guns and things were built for a different purpose, and a lot of guns are built, especially like some of the later Russian guns, are built very sloppy. So they're overgassed. There's a lot of overgassing, and that does contribute to that. So you're 100% right. Getting a gun that's more tuned to you. So my recommendation for him, he says, is there, where's the starting point? I would suggest, and this isn't to be shameless or because we're sitting here on the show together, but I would suggest looking at the Occam gun for that reason, because like you said, it comes from factory with the option to change out the stock, and you have it's more tuned, it's more refined. So, some of these quality American companies are putting out some stuff.
The Vishka is a very smooth shooter.
That's a smooth shooter. Nice. There's, like you say, some of these more modern American production probably would be a good opportunity to look at, I guess, if I was starting out.
Just to throw in my 2 cents on that, I've been able to spend some time with the Occam gun. I think it's a fantastic rifle. It really depends on his budget. If he's looking for a high speed, kick ass, decked out, bad mofo of an AK, by all means, get you an Occam 1775. It's got all the bells and whistles, whatever you can think of to put on it. He's put on it. It's ready to rock and roll. If you're looking for something more in your budget, that's a different story. But if you're looking for a high speed, badass AK, absolutely, the Occam is a great option, and it is got the gas system's a little more regulated, so more refined type of AK build. But that, like I said, that depends on your budget. It's also something that you can buy a standard gun like a Visca, like a Wazer, like whatever, and then add certain parts from companies like Occam or Rifle Dynamics to get that result as well, so you can kind of build it as you go. So he's got multiple options. He just has to figure out his budget, I would say.
You can also get a really fly hoodie at Factory 47. It'll cushion some of that blow in the shoulder.
Yes.
That's
perfect.
The next thing I was going to suggest.
And that's a perfect lead-in. Yeah. Why don't we give away one of your swag packs right now? Let's do that.
All right, perfect.
Let's do that.
How are we doing that?
So so you're giving 3 away, and you're going to have a shirt, a hat, and a mug, a tumbler in that. So whoever the winner is, you're going to shoot me an email with your shirt size, so we can get you the right shirt size. But let's do that. So we'll start with Brian. And Brian, what I want you to do is from Instagram and Facebook, what question really stood out to you, and that's who the first winner of this swag pack is going to be. Pick out your favorite question. And I'm going to go to each one of you two, so go ahead and start looking for yours too, Andrew and James.
I've got a couple in mind already.
Okay.
John I think with his stock question, that provoked a bunch of good answers, and I think it's a good question. So yeah, I'm picking John here.
Okay, so John, Luecke, however you pronounce that, shoot me an email, talkingled@gmail.com, and you're going to win one of Factory 47 swag packs with the shirt, the hat, and the tumbler. And give me your shirt size, too.
Quick shout out to my boys, Sam Russell, Dickie the Third, and I think there's a few other guys running around in here that are my boys. So thank you guys for the questions. Yeah.
A lot of 1775 lead heads out there. So
yep.
If your hoodie size is different than your shirt size, send both.
Oh, okay. So there might be a hoodie in here too. Okay.
There's a hoodie, shirt, and a tumbler. So if you have two sizes for that,
a hoodie. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was a hat. I'm sorry.
Why do you want a hat? You want to do a hat or a hoodie?
No, a hoodie. I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking a hat, shirt, and a tumbler is what you were doing. So
okay,
hoodie. No, hoodies are great.
Find shirt size.
These guys are going to be straight.
Send whatever you want. Right? Send whatever you want. We'll figure this out.
All right. So, Andrew, you go next.
I got to go with the $5,000 in 1980 question. That was definitely the most fun.
That was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
100%.
I think that came from Instagram. Let me go back.
Yep, it was on Instagram.
That was a fun question. That was a good
question.
Yeah
guy.
The oh yeah guy? Okay.
The oh yeah guy on
So
Instagram.
the oh yeah guy, shoot me an email, talkingled@gmail.com with your shirt size and your hoodie size if it's different. And you're going to get a swag pack from Factory 47.
That was the one I was going to pick, so now I'm like frantically digging here trying to find another one.
There you go.
Sorry, dude.
It was a good one.
It was a good one.
And
it may have been one that we didn't read, too, so, I mean, just whatever. Doesn't have to be one we read.
Tandem Dooley with the Do the Mags. He wins a lot, so maybe he at least gets a shout-out for what mag is best across all AK makes and manufacturers and stuff.
Yeah, great question. Great question.
I like this one too. What is the most rare AK variant you've ever held? I'm just curious what your guys' answers are on that. So I thought it was a good question.
Okay, yeah. Let's answer that, and then we'll announce who that was, and he'll win the next swag pack.
All right, I just lost it again. I gotta go find it.
I was gonna ask that one, but
that was Dickie the Third. That was my homeboy. So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Dickie. That's on Instagram.
He's one of them hardworking Americans that's still showing up and keeping people with their power on. And
long-time leadhead, too, yeah. So what is the most rare AK variant you've ever held? We'll start with Brian.
It is a North Korean milled deal that was a bring-back, and the thing is really, really beautiful. I think it was restored in part by John at M13 Industries.
Nice. James?
I also held that North Korean, but so I'm not sure if this is more rare or not, but a Type 1 all original, fully functioning full auto. And that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Andrew. I didn't shoot.
Man, I don't even know. I've played with so many.
Right.
But I mean, it would definitely be a full auto, one of the full auto guns. So I've actually got to shoot a lot of original Chinese full auto guns, which has been pretty cool. But just holding them, I don't know, man. I've held some guns in some museum collections that were pretty rare. I mean, but honestly, I don't think I've ever held anything as rare as the North Korean gun. I mean, that's probably one of the rarest AKs there is in the U.S. I mean, what are there? Maybe like 4 or 5 known.
It's something like that. Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, as far as rarity, I don't think I've held anything as rare as I've seen pictures of North Korean guns. I've never personally held one, but I mean, I've shot a lot of all original, Chinese full autos, Russian full autos, different stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just from doing what I do for so long, I've gotten a lot of cool opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with me. I've had the opportunity to shoot some pretty cool stuff. When I went over to Poland,
that's right.
That was pretty cool. I got to shoot a lot of really cool Eastern Bloc full auto guns. Probably one of the coolest, I guess, was the the German gun, I mean, this is not an AK, but it was a German gun that was actually used in the assassination of, was it Bernhardt? I can't remember what the guy's name was. But the gun didn't kill him. Actually, it was a grenade that killed him. The gun malfunctioned. But this guy had the gun in his collection. And
Wow.
I got to hold it. I did a post on Instagram about it. So you guys,
like the assassination that started World War I, like Franz Ferdinand or whatever.
no. It was World War II, and it was
Okay.
the big German guy that was like giving credit for all the atrocities and stuff. I'm trying to find my post here where I posted.
Which one? Like,
Yeah.
Right, which one? That's the
well, they're
problem
still
with
pretty
doing
rare guns. I
Yeah.
wish they weren't as rare, but they're pretty rare still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck it. Anyway, that's probably the the most significantly historical gun that I've ever held. All right, so that was the winner was
Dickie the Third.
Dickie the Third.
Yep.
All right, Dickie, shoot me your contact info, your shirt sizes, hoodie sizes, and we'll get those over to James, and you win the third swag pack there from Factory 47. So, James, thank you for rewarding our listeners with that.
Yeah,
I know they're
no
going to
problem.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
if you don't mind, I have a coupon code for everyone else that didn't win if they're interested.
Absolutely.
Talking Lead, all lowercase, at factory47.com, 10% off your entire order. So,
Fuck yeah, dude.
Talking
Thank
Lead,
you.
Talking
Lead is the discount code. Use that at checkout, and you're going to get a 10% off your purchase there at Factory 47.
Woo-hoo.
Everybody's a winner on the Talking Lead
Everybody's
podcast.
the winner.
Um,
When you talk about AKs.
If you guys haven't been to Factory 47's website too, you guys, if you're AK guys, you got to go check it out. He has so much cool shit, and you all know I love AKs. But I was actually looking around. I've got one of his Kalashnikov patches somewhere.
have you got one of those? Yeah, those
yeah,
are
I
cool.
got one somewhere. I gotta find it. I think it might be on one of my badges from SHOT Show or something, hanging around somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has a bunch of like really cool. Like if you're an AK nerd like the rest of us, like you're gonna get on his site and like freak out. But remember, it's Factory 47 and Factory's FAK, not FAC.
Yeah, see what I did there? We put AK-47 in the name.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Even your last name has AK in it.
I know, right? It's meant to
CZ
be.
and AK. You got a badass last name, dude.
Yeah, man, thanks.
But yeah, it's FAKTORY47.com. And that's awesome, dude. Thank you so much. 10% off, Leadheads.
And I
Well,
think
thanks.
everything except patches is made in the U.S. by Americans and veteran-owned companies, as far as I know. The big, his partner on the shirt side is a big-time cool guy, American, has done a bunch of good stuff. And so you're supporting the people that we love, who love liberty, going downrange and all that. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and everything we've been talking about today, all the symbols and stuff like that, he's got a lot of those on the shirts, on the hats, on the hoodies, and tumblers and stuff too. So that's pretty cool. Ties in perfect with the show.
Yeah.
So wasn't that awesome giveaway? I mean, we reward
yeah.
the Leadheads here on the AK Corner, Talking Lead AK Corner, presented by Century Arms. But that's it. That's our finale, season finale. This was our 12th episode, and it was a great run.
All right, let's give away an
Absolutely.
AK.
What? What'd you say, Andrew?
Let's give away an AK.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We're giving away an AK too.
My generator like pulled up, like I'm like chomping at the bit. I'm ready to go.
All right, so everybody that took part on Facebook and Instagram, these are the eligible parties. So I went through and I assigned a number to everyone. So number 1 is Dan L. Americano. Number 2 is Ed Burton. And let me clarify this. This is as of when we were recording. So if you put your question in after this, sorry. So these are all the people as of this recording that took part. All right? Number 3 is Brett Badal. Number 4 is Matthew Lade. Number 5 is Kenneth H. McGee. Number 6 is Jay Allen, also Jason Edgar. Number 7, Sam Russell. Number 8, Frijole Breeze, Bean Fart. Number 9 is John Lucky, that name that we don't know how to say, Luecke. Number 10, Nathan Shepard. Number 11, Brad Reynolds. Number 12, Red Lights and Orange Stripes. Number 13, John Adams III. Number 14, Robots WTF. Number 15, Mustang Perry. Number 16, Matt Cousins 1982. Number 17, Dickie the Third. Number 18, Brian will like this one. It's our good buddy FPS Murdoch.
Heck yeah.
19, Tandem Dooley. Good old Dooley. He's been on the show a few times too. Number 20, Low Tan 89. Number 21, Rabid Porcupine 58. Number 22, Giddy Up. 23, and this is The Gens Reloaders. 24 is the Oh Yeah Guy. 25 is, what is this? Something Fist. I can't even read my own writing. Instafist? Gangstafist? Something Fist. You're the only one that's got Fist in your name, so. 26 is Arnold and Sarah. 27, Big Papa. 28, CRS Hokey. 29, Make Me Famous. 30 is Bird Brain Industry. And 31 is Barry Mueller 80. So we got 31 entries. Everybody's been assigned a number. Andrew, are you doing the random numberizer?
Oh,
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, go
You
for
got
it.
it. You got it. Pull it up. You got it. Go for it.
All right, since Andrew is Century Arms, we'll let Andrew do it. And you're using a Google numberizer, random
I'm
numberizer?
using Google random number generator.
All right. So hit it, and let's see who our winner is. 1 through 31.
Number 10 is our winner.
Number 10, Nathan Shepard. Congratulations, Nathan Shepard. You just secured yourself a Vishka, Century Arms Vishka. And tell them about the Vishka, Andrew.
Well, it is our current standard AK main gun that we have on the market. It's 100% U.S. manufactured. It uses 100% machined trunnions. So the trunnions are actually machined from hardened tool steel. So they're not forged or cast. They're actually machined. It's also got a nice parked finish. Pretty awesome gun. We've sold quite a lot of them. It may take us a bit to get him that AK, but we've got it. We're making as many as we can every day. As everyone knows, there's quite a run on guns right now. But yeah, definitely we'll enjoy it. I know Marty's got one. I've got several. Definitely great shooting AK, and you'll have a lifetime of fun with it.
There you go. There you go. So congratulations, Nathan. And thank you all you lead heads. Thanks to all you lead heads for taking part and making Season 2 of the Talking Lead AK Corner such a success. I couldn't have done it without you guys. And, we're in talks on doing a Season 3. So if you want a Season 3, send our sponsors messages letting them know that you want to continue this this awesome leducation that we give you guys each and every month with the Talking Lead AK Corner. And I would love to do it again. I would love to continue this. So like I said, we've got plenty more to talk about. There's no shortage of topics that we can get into here. So let's keep this train rolling. So in the meantime, if you want to get your AK fix and you want to go out and see some cool AKs and maybe take part in some shooting competitions, Red October was canceled, but Kalash Bash is still going to happen, and Brian's got some info on that. So tell them about Kalash Bash.
Oh, Andrew has the info on Kalash Bash. Just very briefly on Red October, it was not their decision. The way the liability laws work in Nevada, if anybody got sick at that event, Red October and everybody else would be on the hook for any damages associated with that. This is a looming problem that needs to be solved very quickly, because the idea that business owners are liable for whether somebody gets sick in their establishment, that's just, tort law and, civil law in general in this country is a mess. And if those kind of laws continue with COVID, I think it'll be really chilling for anybody looking to get into business or to continue to do business. So to the degree that people can make their voices heard to local and regional authorities that this is BS and that we need some protection for small business, that'd be very cool.
Good deal. So, Andrew, Kalash Bash.
So, as of now, Kalash Bash is still happening. It is October 9th and 10th, I believe. It's at a range outside of Houston, Texas. So it is in Texas. This is a rescheduled event. It was originally supposed to happen in April.
Free America.
Rescheduled it in October. Do what?
I said Texas, Free America.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So, I don't know. I guess go to their website to get more information. I'm not really sure on specific details on the event, except for Century Arms will be there representing the shooting. So if you guys are in the Texas area or the Houston area or want to come out that area for the event, I'm sure you can check out their social media or their website or whatever and find out more information. But that's the only thing I know about Kalash Bash is that it's, as of today, it is still happening.
Okay. And are you aware of any events or anything going on, James? AK related?
I am not. I was sitting here listening diligently to the updates on the 2 events that I did know about.
Okay. And you can also, train until, season 3 gets here. 212 training group, still running their training all over the country. We're in talks with them right now to come to Nashville and work a AK specific training class at Royal Range USA. We'll give you more details once we get that all ironed out. That's going to be next year sometime, beginning of next year. But I know that they still have classes that are filling up. You can look at here in Camden, Tennessee, at shall we say James Yeager, but what's the name of his fucking company?
Tactical Response.
Thank you, Tactical Response.
Still up and running and very good, very relevant training. And they train outside. So if you have some concerns, wear a mask and get after it. COVID does not live outdoors in sunlight for very long at all.
I think gunpowder kills it too. So I think it's
that
proven.
And testosterone seems to have something to do with it.
And in Tennessee, you can't get it until after 10:30 at night, so you're totally fine.
That's just Nashville. That's just in Nashville. Anywhere else in Tennessee, it's you're fine. You don't got to worry about it. Yeah.
In Nashville, you only get it after 10:30 at night.
Exactly. But in the meantime, keep those emails, social media messages coming in to me. If you've got suggestions for shows, guests that you want on the show, send those to me, talkinglead@gmail.com. And if you're a past winner and you've not received your prize yet, because as Andrew mentioned, the world has been crazy, and especially for the firearms industry, they're way behind on ammo and guns and things like that. So shoot me an email, talkinglead@gmail.com. Let me know the episode that it was and what you won, and I'll check into it, and we want to make sure that you get your prize. So that's it, guys. Season finale, great show. What a way to go out for season 2. Century Arms, Occam Defense Solutions, Red Army Standard, US Palm, IWI US, Mechanic USA, go show them love, and of course Factory 47. You've got that awesome discount code now that you can use, all lowercase, Talking Lead. You're going to get 10% off. Go use it. James, thank you so much. Give your website and social media one more time.
Website is factory47.com, Instagram, Facebook at factory47 with a K.
With a K. And then in the meantime, go watch Red Dawn again, Leadheads.
And thanks so much for having me again.
Absolutely. We'll see you in season 3, Leadheads.
Outtakes.
Let me try stopping my camera then.
I can see the screen.
Okay. I think, Marty, that you're just special needs. So there it is.
I guess. Cool. I sent everybody a Google Docs link, but some people don't get it.
Oh, I must have missed that email. I apologize.
Yeah, I do that every show, and for some reason, you never get it. Yeah, that's a shitty one. I did a really good one.
Oh, well,
Let me see if I can link mine in.
To the good one, and we'll ditch my shitty one then.
No offense.
No offense. Hey, Marty.
Hey.
Can you hear me okay without my mic?
Hey, you sounded better with it.
Well, yeah, but I didn't charge my phone up, and of course I can't have my earphones and my phone charging at the same time.
Really?
I only got 30%.
You suck.
I know I'm stupid, but let me get some more juice, and I'll put it on when we start the show.
You're good.
But we did have a really good outpouring from social media, so we've got a lot of questions that we can field today too. I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to go through those and just kind of.
Yeah, I looked at a bunch of them.
Okay, and I know Andrew doesn't have social media, so fuck you, Andrew.
That's my jam. Thank you. Perfect.
Cool. All right, I'm going to go around the room. We'll start with Andrew. Let me hear you.
Charlie Tango Tea Kettle Barbecue. You got me. Yes, no. We good? Yep. David Martin Putin farting.
Yeah, you're good. All right, Brian.
The arsonist had oddly shaped feet. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. I like scotch. Scotch down in my belly.
Okay, you're good. And James, one more time.
The chair's against the wall. The chair's against the wall. The chair's against the wall. John has a long mustache.
John has a long mustache.
We just talked about that last episode. That's awesome. Love it.
It's the 80s, man.
Okay, cool. I'm just asking.
No, I've already got everybody's name, and I got everybody numbered.
Oh, you do? Oh, shit. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I've already.
Usually not that prepared. That's why I'm asking.
Fuck you. I am usually this prepared.
Can you guys hear that compressor running in the background?
I thought it was your butt vibrator for watching Pornhub.
You were not wrong. I was just trying to get you thinking of something else.
That was your magic egg.
The magic takes one to know one.
All right,
okay.
No, and James, the mute button is your friend for sure. Like chair creaks and stuff. I bet your studio is pretty quiet, but I make heavy use of the mute button to make sure that my farts and Tourette syndrome don't make it onto air.
All right, sounds good.
That's funny.
I think I'm with all of that.
Okay. Sounds like you've done this before.
I have not. This is my first time on a podcast. I have been in this room, like, we've test recorded like probably 30, 40, but the content's not good enough, so I haven't launched my shit yet. But
it's not good enough. Listen at him. It's probably perfect.
Got a bit of practice on the mic, but that's about it.
You're going to feel a lot better about your podcast after today.
That's the plan.
Exactly. Yeah. You're going to go, oh, it's that fucking easy. What the hell? I'm going to release all the shit I've already recorded. I've already got a season. All right, let's do this.